Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear friends, depending on your own geographical location. Welcome once again to Education Matters with Nsisong Sampson. I am your regular host. Trust your day is going well. And today we have a very great man in the studio. We have somebody that will be joining me very soon on this hot seat, and we are going to discuss a very great and insightful topic today: assessing the impacts of school counselors on academic and personal growth of secondary school students. Dear friends, if you go to our public schools these days, you will notice that you don't have the people that we used to call counselors again in school, especially in public schools. I think private schools have been trying, but in our public schools, you don't have the counselors. So you find students and learners suffering over a little thing like even career counseling, even subject combinations. At times you will see people combining subjects to take WAEC, and you will just ask yourself at the end of the day, what will this one use this subject combination to study? So in that case, you find out that if there was a counselor in that school, most of these little issues would have been sorted out. So dear friends, stay put, fasten your seatbelts, and let's discuss this in details today, and why it is very necessary for our government, for the politicians, for the well-meaning citizens to always recruit counselors. And in fact, all these public secondary school should, as a matter of fact, have one counselor that will be guiding the students. So, dear friend, thank you once again for joining us as I invite my guest today. So, thank you very much.
Emmanuel and supports Education Matters with Nsisong Sampson.
Okay, welcome back, dear friends. I told you we have a very big guest today in our show, and let me allow my guest to do a brief introduction of himself. Thank you. Welcome to the show, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nsisong. My name is Patrick Inyang, and I'm so pleased to be here today. Thanks for having me today, Mr. Nsisong.
Thank you for accepting to be our guest today. And last, we have you on the show.
Yeah.
And dear friends, I think he is the right person to discuss this topic. He has been in the education sector for quite a long time, and I don't want to go into history, but assessing the impact of school counselors. As I said earlier, our school, especially the public schools, are suffering, and students are also suffering because of lack of school counselors. There are some little issues that should have been addressed by the counselors, but because they are not in the schools, and you see students suffering even to the extent of the higher institution. So, Mr. Patrick, can you give us a brief concept of counselor? Who is a counselor?
Okay, just like the name implies, a counselor is a trained or a licensed professional who supports the academic progress of a child in the school. Looking at the school system now, he's someone that has been trained to offer both academic support, emotional support, social support for the well-being of the learners in the school system.
Emotional support, very important, because if you ask some teachers in the rural areas, you will know that most of these learners and students, they are not staying with their parents, and they have a lot to talk about. They don't have people to express what they are passing through to. And in the case that there is no counselor in school, they keep this to themselves and might do what they are not supposed to do. So, what are the duties of the school counselors?
Okay, there's always this misconception about who a teacher is, or who a teacher is. Some people feel that a teacher should be a counselor, should be everything. Yeah, that is correct to an extent, but then in terms of being very professional, remembering that the school system, you're actually building up children for the future. A professional counselor is needed in the school system.
Okay.
The duties of a professional counselor or a counselor in the school system can never be the same with that of a class teacher. I just said earlier that the academic support, no matter how a teacher is good in the classroom, the teacher cannot completely support the academic progress of that child.
Okay.
The emotional and the social development of a child too. A class teacher cannot do that as well. Even the mental state of a child, a class teacher cannot access that alone. So that's why a counselor is very necessary in a school, being that all these roles that partially are being played by this teacher can be handled by the counselor, by his or herself.
Which means the duty of a counselor in the school is very, very important. So, what are some of the impacts of a school counselor? Why is it very necessary for public schools in particular, especially, to have a counselor?
Okay, my tertiary institution, I actually attended a public school, and I would say that I got to appreciate my course of study in my final year. You understand what that means?
Like from year one to
year one to my final year, when I started doing my seminar, my projects, that's when I appreciated the course I studied. So you know what that means. Assuming I had a counselor from the inception, I bet I would have maybe graduated with a better grade in school. So that shows you that they have a very important role to play in the life of any learner. Looking at the public school now, yes, it's a public school, we call it. Okay. But then these people, whether a student attends a public school or a private school, at the end of the day, the children will be launched into the society.
Yes.
And in the society, you won't say, okay, because this person attended a public school, they should be given this treatment. It's because this person. No. The duty of a counselor in the school, the academic support. There are students that have learning challenges that might not be identified by the class teacher. That's the duty of a counselor in the school. There are some kids that once they hear mathematics, it's a problem for them. It's actually the duty of a counselor to talk to the child and see how we can bring that child up to speed, to appreciate mathematics. Coping mechanism. Sometimes we think stress is actually meant for adults, but a student can be stressed too. And of course, the class teacher is already stressed. So you won't expect someone that is stressed to teach another person that is stressed how to cope with stress. So that's the duty of a counselor. So in the public school, of course, being very realistic, you know the situation of things in Nigeria. This is something that the government actually needs to look into it. Because a lot of students are not doing well, not because they cannot do well, but because they don't really have someone that guides them. I use the what we call the ministry, the churches, for example. People say, this is my mentor, it's my papa. Now, the difference between a counselor and, of course, the mentor is just that the mentor is informal. The counselor is formal. So it's actually a very crucial part of not just the child's life, but, of course, the school system. When you look at the school community, a lot of things, it entails a lot.
Okay.
For you to evaluate your progress as a school is the duty of a counselor. You did this last session. So what is the progress? What progress have you made?
Okay.
The collection of data based on the performance of all the kids in the school, all the learners in the school, is done by the counselor. From there, you said, okay, let's introduce new projects or new programs. Interventive programs for slow learners or learners with learning challenges cannot be developed by the class teacher. That's the duty of the counselor. So all of these things, when you put it together, you see that unfortunately, most students suffer in the public school, and of course, when they get to the university, they have to develop that in quote coping mechanism for themselves. And before they get to realize it, just like I realized myself in my final year, it's too late. And another important thing is being able to help a child choose its right career.
Yes.
Now, there are kids that are normally they are very smart in a particular subject. And the counselor should be able to detect, okay, if this child goes into this particular field, the child will be good.
Okay.
You have a child in your class who can draw very well. Who can draw? If you give the child a pencil, they can, of course, draw you in less than 5 minutes. And the parents wants that child to go and study medicine. It's the duty of the counselor to say, no, this is where your child's strength lies. And of course, with that collaboration between the school environment or the school community, the teachers, and of course the parents, the child will make the right decision, not just for the school, but of course the long life journey of that child.
Yeah, very true, because I remember in my secondary school days, there are some set of students that they will get to SS2 they won't know whether they want to be art students or science students. And at the end of the day, because your friend uh, is in science class, you say, okay, since my friend is a science student, let's follow. Since my friend is doing art, let's just follow. So I think these are all the duties of counselors. And if it is not tackled very well in the secondary school or elementary school days, it will definitely affect them in the future.
Definitely, definitely. And one thing too, most times when we look at learners, we try to look at people learning or learning generally as something that happens within a space of time. We look at the primary from primary 1 to 6, 6 years, secondary, 6 years, university. Now, it's actually the duty of a counselor to instill that love for learning and make it a child discover that it's not just something that happens in the moment, but it's a lifelong journey. A teacher will not have that patience, will be very sincere. No matter how passionate the teacher is, the teacher will definitely have his or her strength or his or her limit.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick,
Thank
for
you.
that insightful explanation. So, but in our secondary school, there's a problem we normally face, maybe because of a shortage of teachers. Now, the role of a counselor is supposed to be played by somebody who studied guidance and counseling, right?
Sure, yes.
But in most of our public schools, even if you did guidance and counseling and you go to a school that there is shortage of teacher, either we don't have an English teacher, a BPO teacher, or a physics teacher, you will only be asked to occupy the space that is available. And now these gifts or what you study might in quote become a waste. So how can we fix that particular gap? How can we deal with it?
I would say the way forward is just that heads of school, of course, we can't start blaming the system that we find ourselves, the Nigerian system. Of course, you want to blame will not get anything done.
That's
But
right.
I believe that heads of school, if they understand the importance of a counselor in the school, they will go all out to get one for themselves. How is that possible? A teacher can depict, and a short course on counseling is being organized. And of course, after maybe 6 months, you have a counselor in your class or in your school. Also, if a school system cannot get a counselor, alternatively, the teachers available can be trained in that aspect of counseling. And for you to get that done within the school timetable, you create a time for that. And possibly the class teacher might be so used to a particular set of students. So if you've trained all the teachers, you then assign different people for different classes as counselors. Take for instance, I'm teaching SS1 class, or maybe I'm taking mathematics in SS1. I can be a counselor to those in JS1.
Okay.
Just to ensure that since the system cannot give us a counselor or someone that read guidance and counseling, we can the school that we happen to find ourselves, or the head teacher can actually get staff trained 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We can get something, though the result might not be 100%, but at least 60% is a pass mark. I think that's one of the ways that we can bridge that gap. But then the need, take for instance, if you have a bad road connecting the government's house and of course the public, I bet you the government will fix it immediately. Yes. But if the road leads to somewhere else, the government might not really fix it. So if you make the need for the counselors in school to be like a bad road that leads to the government's house, I tell you, government will definitely fix it. Because if everybody gets to know that a child needs a counselor in their life as they are growing up, I bet you will get it solved.
That means even the principals, the headmasters, and the headmistresses, they really need to understand the impact of a counselor.
Yes.
Because they have to speak out.
Of course.
Yes.
It's just like there's this analogy or a test that was given to us in NYC camp. We were asked, a group of lions led by a sheep and a group of sheep led by a lion, which one is stronger? Sometimes we tend to blame the government a lot. Yes, it's a normal thing for us here, which in truth, they were actually elected to be blamed or to take responsibility for all these things. But if it's not forthcoming, you are the one in charge of that school.
Okay.
As a head teacher, you are the one in charge. So what do? Everything within your power. Because what they're doing, you're not doing it for the government, you're actually doing it for the future of those within your care. So if you happen not to have a counselor in your school, one of the ways I would suggest is either yourself you get trained as a counselor, or you ensure that you create a workshop for the staff within your school, or you can sponsor one or two teachers within your school to go acquire this skill because you actually need it for your school.
Now, you made mention of training your teachers, some of your teachers. Now, since we have shortage of teachers already in schools, and most teachers are teaching subjects that are not, at times, not related to what they study in school, but they are just willing to help because they know and there are textbooks and other stuff to access. Now, adding this role of a counselor, is it not multitasking? Is it not putting more pressure or more work on the teacher?
Of course, to the best of my knowledge, or in my own, what I would say, for me, teaching job is not for everybody. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, teaching job is not for everybody. I remember people saying your teacher should what is in heaven. And I read somewhere on the social media that the best brains are becoming doctors is actually those that don't have anything to do that are going back to the classroom, which is not supposed to be so. Now, what is a school system? You cannot talk about development without a good school system.
Okay.
Yes, our system does not prioritize the welfare of teachers. That I understand. But that does not mean that something cannot be done. I will always say, no matter what happens or no matter the situation, the head of the school has a major role to play. He has a major role to play. What is it? What is this major role? Forget about, let's just put aside the benefits from the government in terms of salary. If the owner of the school, or if the head of the school, because we're looking at the public school now, if the head of the school creates a good working environment for the staff working under him. I know it's government school, people always think government should do everything. But if the head, the person heading the school, is able to create a good working environment for the staff or for the teachers there, even though it's tasking, you will always see them trying to do it. You will always see them trying to deliver. Because when a teacher discovers that he is not just working to be paid, but is actually molding for futures, he will do everything within his or her power to ensure that he gives him the best, even when it has to do with adding extra roles to him or her to do.
So it still falls back to the management of the school. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Patrick, for what you've done today and all the explanations. So, before I allow you to go, your parting shot and your general remarks, your closing remarks, general advice and ideas to the school management, to the government, and to everybody in the education sector.
Okay, we live in an age where learning now is just so dynamic. Things change over before now, 10 years before you see a change, but now you can just wake up tomorrow morning and the English you're speaking now, there will be some corrections and of course you need to adapt. Now, teachers may not have that time to do that research, evaluate the research, and of course bring out suggestions on how to implement new things within the school system. A counselor, it's a necessity. When we talk about the necessity of life, we talk about food, water, and of course clothing. Now, the school system, the government should make counselor a necessity. It's a must-have for all the schools. Now we're looking at public schools, but I tell you, there's some private schools that do not even have. Which should, of course, for me, I would suggest it should be one of the requirements when someone is starting up a school. Okay. Depending on the strength of the school you're starting.
It should be a requirement.
Yes, it should be a requirement. When governments, the Ministry of Education are coming for assessment, there must be an office set aside for the counselor. Apart from that, of course, public school, there should be a sort of campaign on the need to have counselors in school. So many of the things that happen in our schools now, assuming there were counselors in place, some of them would not happen.
True.
Some of them would not happen. You see a child struggling to study a particular course simply because, like you said earlier, the friends are studying that course. They want to do it. But if the child had this exposure, of course, the child will know where to go. Another suggestion I would say, usually at the beginning of a new school session, 1 week, there's usually no lectures. I think that period should be used for counseling for all the students. At the beginning of every session, the kids are moving to a new class or they are coming in as fresh students. That first 1 week, there should be someone, even the class teachers that have gotten a little bit of training on counseling, all the kids learning, getting to know the child's temperament, the child's challenges before. Of course, one of the schools I worked with some years back, that's what we usually do. Setting targets for the students. A class teacher might not be able to do that.
Okay.
Assessing the child's past successes. The class teacher might not be able to do that. But when you have a counselor that has the data of all these kids and is able to put them side by side, and of course, he will know what to do. The counselors for school is not just for the kids. I know that we've talked more about the impact for the children, but of course, the counselor too is actually for the teachers as well.
Yes.
They can actually discover that a child has a problem, and of course, communicate to the teacher, and of course, tell the teacher how they can go about it. A counselor too will be an interface between the school, the teacher, and of course, the parents.
Yes.
The class teacher might tell the parents, "Oh, please, your child cannot do this." So, who are you to tell me that? But when a counselor comes in, you know, Nigerians, we like titles. These are school counselors. They tend to believe the person the more. So all of these things should be put in place because it is actually for the good of not just the students, but of course the whole school community. The head teacher, the principal, as the case may be, the teachers, the pupils, and of course the parents all makes up or all benefit from the counselor.
You know, at times, let me bring this back. I think I did a teaching practice in a school. I think it was on the last day that I left that school. Something happened and I got to know that we had a counselor. Okay. But this woman was very good in farming. And I believe 80% of the students in that school never knew that there was a counselor. That means we only had a counselor for the namesake in case the ministry comes. We have this office. But nobody knew. But that woman was very good in farming. So I think the school should also make the teachers and the learners, the students know, okay, if you have any problem, this is our school counselor. This is his or her office. So just visit, explain what you are facing. Just be free to talk to the person. And the woman never even showed up.
Okay, now the thing is creating a system that even offers the counselor, give the counselor an opportunity to work.
Okay.
You know, walking up to someone to tell the person your problem is very difficult.
Especially in today's world.
Yes, in today's world. Forget about even though the kids, even the pupils, there must be something that prompts a child to come to you as an adult to say, I have this problem in school. So if the school system now creates an avenue that empowers the counselor, everybody in the school will know that there's a counselor. And in fact, everybody will want to visit the counselor. It's just like now, it happens, you have a problem, and you have been told, oh, because of course a counselor, if he or she has been in the business or in the school system for a long time, will have wealth of experience. You can actually have something like a talk show organized for the school by the counselor. The counselor comes, talks to the children, share the experiences. I had a child in my school when I worked. In fact, one of the most challenging kids that I ever had, that actually to an extent shaped me and my perception about dealing with kids with learning disabilities or learning challenges. Every kid learn at their pace.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, you would just waste a child's life. So if you create an avenue where the counselor talks to all the kids. Give it time, kids will start approaching. And of course, it has to be someone that's very friendly.
Okay.
It has to be someone that you can approach at any time. If you bring someone that has a stone face, of course you're scaring the kids away. But if it's someone that is very friendly and of course very available, the kids will definitely go to him or her.
And again why this having a counselor in school is very important. I think in this part of the world, we don't really have special schools in like every local government. We just have both those with disabilities and all this that are mixed, and all this task is left for the teacher to handle. So I feel this particular thing we are talking is very important. Every public school needs to have a counselor,
of course,
because it takes somebody who is so observant to notice that this particular student can't see the board clearly. This particular student, there's something disturbing the child. So it takes the duty of a counselor. So thank you, Mr. Patrick, for your time today. Thank you for letting us know, and our viewers, even the governments, know that having a counselor in school is very, very important. Not just the government, but because we love blaming the government over everything. And as I keep saying, the government cannot do it all alone. As a school manager, as a proprietress, the principal in the school, just note that the duty of a counselor in that your school is very important. Very, very important. So don't wait for the government to employ. As I said earlier on, you can pick 2 or 3 staff, train them for that particular position, and they would. It is better than having none. So thank you very much, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much. So do you have any other thing to say to our guests? Sorry, to our audience.
Okay. I'm very pleased. I know I've always wanted to be here. This has been on my head for so long a time, but I'm glad that I finally made it available. I've made myself available today. The issue of school counselor can never be overemphasized. That's the truth. And we know how things work in Nigeria now. If everybody comes in, all the educators around the world, around Nigeria, comes in and we say hashtag counselor, school counselor, that can be an hashtag, and before you know it, government will do something about it. It's not just for the students, it's not just for the school, it's for the society. Because whatsoever happens in the school, the ripple effect is what we feel in the society. So, my parting words, let's see how we can put our hands together and push the government and push ourselves to ensure that every school or every child have an access to a counselor during his or her time, so that you'll not be like me that got to appreciate my course of study in my final year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will still, we still have one other topic to discuss today. So I don't know, I will give you back to the hot seat. But with God, everything is possible.
No problem.
What God cannot do does not exist. Thank you very much, dear friends. Thank you for staying put. I still remain myself and your regular host, Nsisong Sampson. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Education Matters with Nsisong Sampson. See you in the next edition of our show. Bye for now.
Bye.